What an amazing story. Let's give it up for Paul. Man, over the last few weeks, we've just sort of been highlighting some people in our church, different campuses that have gone through some hard things. And I'm not speaking specifically on these issues that they're raising. I just wanted to kind of bring to light that we're all going through something, that everybody has a journey, and life's not easy for anybody. So we have to deal with this. So I appreciate Paul sharing his story. I mean, it's just an amazing story. His wife, Jenny, works in our worship and creative arts department, and it's a great family, and they've been through a lot. And their life story is encouraging to us. And so I just wanted to share it with you a little bit. I want to welcome those that are visiting with us today for the first time on one of three of our campuses. Yesterday, we had a great fall festival at our West End campus where hundreds of people came from the community and really just walked over there for a great fun day. So thank you at West End for all your support, all your volunteering, and thanks for Alyssa, Kelley, Keaton for working so hard to make that a great event. And then we had another fall festival here last night at the Richmond campus. It was crazy. I don't even talk about it. It was amazing. But there was turkey legs involved. And so it was incredible. And then today at the Missouri City campus, hello to everybody at Missouri City. They're having their fall festival during church today. Lisa and I were there a couple weeks ago, and it was just amazing to see what's going on at Missouri City and all the new friends that we have there. So welcome there if you're at Missouri City. Go by and see Nathan if you haven't met him today. He'd love to meet you. Well, we're going to talk about something hard today as we finish up this series called The Hardest Thing I've Ever Done. Ryan talked about something difficult last week, talked about forgiving others. If you didn't see that, you should go to YouTube and check that out. Today we're going to talk about something that's going to, here's my, I didn't say hi to my mom. And I like to say hi to my mom. Sorry, I'm a little ADD today. Mom, thanks for watching, and all those that are watching online. We have hundreds of people that tune in all over the world, so there. Okay, Ryan talked about forgiveness, and today I'm going to talk about something, and the temptation that you're going to have is to say, thank God he's not talking about me. And I just want you to be brave and courageous and say, no, maybe he is talking about me. This is something, all these things that we've been talking about that are the hardest thing I've ever done, it's really hard to self-identify. That's the hardest thing about it. It's like, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I struggle with. Jesus always addresses things that it's universal. Everybody struggles with. So today we're going to be talking about being judgmental. Now, I've said it, and you're going, oh, thank God he's not talking about me because I'm not judgmental. Well, that's pretty judgmental of you to say that. So, so I want us to talk about it in a way that makes sense and helps you in your relationships with other people. Now, it comes up and in Matthew chapter 7, and it's at the end of this section called the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus begins his ministry with this fundamental teaching of what his ministry is going to be like. And he's already talked about in chapters 5 and 6, he's talked about spiritual things like prayer and fasting and material things and anxiety over material things. He talked about divorce, talked about some other things. And then in chapter 7, he turns sort of a corner and starts talking about our relationships with other people. And he starts Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 in this way. He says this, don't judge others. Don't judge others. Don't do that. Don't judge others or you'll be judged. Okay? Don't judge others or you'll be judged. And so this is a verse that even if you don't believe in God, you kind of knew it was in the Bible, and you've used it as a way to defend your choices. Somebody says to you, I don't think you should be doing that. Who are you? Don't judge me, man. Don't judge me. Or we've said it to other people, right? We've looked at something and we've been accused, so we say, hey, we've said, don't judge me, or other people have said it to us, don't judge me, and it's this kind of this misunderstanding. Even if you don't follow Jesus, you don't believe in Jesus, this is one of your favorite verses because you can say, hey, I get to set my own rules and my own regulations. And I want to talk about what does it really mean to be judgmental, because I think we all suffer from this. Now, let me first start talking about what it doesn't mean, okay? What it doesn't mean. What it doesn't mean is God's taking away our ability to discern right from wrong. I mean, I know we all want to be autonomous and decide, well, I get to decide what's true and what's not true, and I get to decide truth's relative, and I get to decide, what's right for me and what's wrong for me, and you have no say in that. You decide for you and don't decide for me, but there is a truth that's really bigger than our minds can take in, that we can seek truth and we can believe truth or not believe truth, but we can't create truth. And so the ideal here isn't that we can't say, hey, you really shouldn't kill people. Hey, don't judge me, man. No, really, that seems wrong. Don't judge. Who am I to judge? I guess if they want to kill people. I mean, so we have these kind of weird ideas about sin and about, right, like we don't get this. And that's not what Jesus is talking about. In fact, after this section, your homework is to read all of Matthew chapter 7. And so at the end of this little idea of saying don't be judgmental, he says, hey, you've got to discern when people are ready to hear spiritual things. He says, don't throw pearls before swine. So you got to figure out if they're ready or not. And then later in the book, he talks about the idea that you have to determine who's a false prophet by looking at the fruits of their life. So God's not taking our ability to discern right from wrong or what's good or healthy. He's not doing that. He's talking about something completely different. In fact, he goes on here, he says, don't judge. And he says, for you will be judged in the same way that you've judged others, and the amount you've given to others will be given to you. So the question is, how do you want to be judged? How do you want to be judged? I know for me, I don't want to be judged. I don't want anybody to hold me accountable. I don't want anybody to bring anything up. I don't want to be judged. But if that's not possible, here's how I'd like to be judged. I'd like to be judged with the full context of my life journey in mind. I'd love to be judged based upon grace. Like, instead of you just picking out one bad moment or one bad decision or one stupid thing that I've said. And I get a microphone for a living, so it's like I say a lot of things you walk out of here going, well, he was off today. I'll tell you what, I think he's completely wrong. I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Well, thank you for that. I just want you, and you're probably right, actually, and I just want you to take my whole life into account before you make a judgment on a moment that you witnessed. I want you to take into account, for example, and this is how you want to be judged too, by the way. I want you to take into account the fact that my home life, that my father left and my dad was an alcoholic and I had a stepdad that was a warden of a federal penitentiary and my mom was a single mom for a long time and somehow that's affected me. I want you to sort of factor that in when you make a judgment on this moment that you just saw. I want you to take into effect that I moved around a little bit and I went to different schools and I wasn't very athletic and I didn't fit into any peer group and I didn't know where I belonged. I'd like for you to kind of figure that in when you say, this is what's going on with Patrick. I'd like you to think about my insecurities because I'm very insecure. And so are you, by the way. And it's like, I would like you to think, oh, he's really nervous about this or he's insecure. I want you to factor in hurtful moments in my life that somehow you know about and you explain. And I want you to take the whole context of my life into consideration before you make an assessment on what you just witnessed or saw or experienced. See, what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to size me up and write me off. And that's kind of what we do. Jesus is talking about sizing people up. Like, we like to sort of size people up like we understand based on the color of the skin or based upon where they've come from or based that we know all about them. We have this arrogance about us that says, hey, you know what? We know all about them because I need to know this understanding. And we talk about it in terms of those people. You know those people. And we have these fun stereotypes with ethnicities that are very dangerous because not everybody's the same in that people group. And we take out the complexities and we take out everybody's individual life journey. And Jesus is saying this really affects the way you relate to other people and it's hurtful. Now, he doesn't mean that we don't show discernment, and it doesn't mean that we don't understand right from wrong, and it doesn't mean that we can't assess sin from non-sin and all that stuff. It just says that as you approach other people, this judgmental attitude, this self-righteousness is a big problem. In fact, in John, it says it this way. It says, don't judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. So right judgment is the correct thing, but don't judge a book by its cover. Have you ever heard that? And we do this, quite frankly, very quickly, especially as you get older. You think you know about other people, or at least I do think I know about other people. And I've had to battle because I'm a pastor, and I'm in church, and I went to preacher's school, and I've been a Christian for a long time, this self-righteous attitude that I'm better than other people because of something. And you have to fight that too. So Jesus gives us this order. He says this, and he says, why do you see the little speck of dust in your friend's eye, right? But you don't notice the big piece of wood in your own eye, a plank or a log. Why do you do this? And he's not saying some of you. No, look, he doesn't say, I know some of you struggle with this. He's saying you. I don't do that. Okay. Why do you see the little piece of dust in your friend's eye? That's so easy. That there's somehow, because our eyes face outward and we can see everybody, that we go, oh, I see the problem. We see it on the news, or we see it in person, and we see it on Facebook or Instagram. And we say, did you see the dress they were wearing? Did you see how she did her makeup? Did you see what he was drinking? Looked like they was having a pretty good time. Lord help them. And we assess what we see in a moment, and we make these things. We're very aware of other people's problems. But he says here, but you don't notice the bigger thing, the big piece of wood, a plank, a log in your own eye. You don't do that because we're not self-aware. And this is kind of the urgency that Jesus is teaching on. This is a command. Don't judge others. Instead, first, you got to look at your life. This is what he says. He goes on, the next verse, he says, how can you say to your friend, let me take that little piece of dust out of your own eye? Look at yourself. This is the real heart of the teaching of Jesus, that we are to look at ourselves. This is what we don't like to do because it's scary. We're not very self-aware because it opens up this box and we have to admit our faults, and it impacts the way we think of ourselves and our sense of value. Self-worth comes from, a lot of times, the wrong place. And it comes from this place of measuring ourselves against others. And Jesus is taking away that measuring stick, and he says, look at yourself. You still have that log in your eye. You still have that log in your eye. And he goes on to say this, you hypocrite. Thank God he's not talking about you today, right? I know nobody at West End feels this, or Missouri City, or here, this is my problem. Thank you for letting me work through it. You hypocrite. How dare. Isn't that judgmental of him to say? It is Jesus, by the way, but you hypocrite. That's what he's saying. First, here's the order of things. Take the wood out of your own eye. Be introspective. Be self-aware. Do some soul searching. Take a look at your own character. Don't ignore that. Then you'll be able to help other people. Clearly, take the dust out of your friend's eye. So this is the idea, is that when we take our context and our journey and our information and all that we know, and we begin to apply it to everybody else, not that there isn't an absolute truth. There is, and there's truth about our lives that we need to understand. But what we don't understand is where other people are coming from. And so what we do is we take our context and apply it to another context. And this especially happens when we move from one family to another family, when we get married. Like my family growing up, if we thought it, we said it. It was very helpful and very hurtful. We didn't hide anything. If we thought it, we said it. Lisa's family was not like that. If you thought it, in Lisa's family, you hid it. You talked in some sort of code about it that you had to decipher. It's like, what do you mean here? And so as we were getting married and merging the family together, she's knowing this context. I was so abrasive because I would just say, hey, what about this? And she was like, we don't talk about that. Obviously, she was wrong, but, her context was off. But it was that kind of deal. When you move from one church to another church, you do this. Because the church you grew up in did it this way. Then you come to a place like West End, or you come to a place like River Point or Missouri City, and you go, well, they're doing pretty good, but they don't do communion every week. They don't have an altar call. Everybody's an expert in my business, by the way, because you've been in church for a while. And you come in and you take your context and apply it to this context, and this is not right. You do that, too, when you move from one country to another country. That the cultural norms, and he's saying, you got to be a better listener to that. You got to look first what's going on in your life before you can really fully assess what's going on in something else. I just got back from Cuba, as you know, last week. Thank you for all your generous donations. We were able to take 400 pounds of over-the-counter medicines and supplies to the people of Cuba. That's just amazing. Things they don't have access to. We also bought a piano from Guitar Center to take down there because the church down there half their keys didn't work. So we took this piano down there. You should have seen us trying to get that into Cuba. You know, Cuba is a communist socialist country, and things are different completely down there, and the church is different down there. We're reminded of our American mindset every time we go down there, trying to apply that to a communist government. I mean, it's completely different. We met some amazing people. In fact, one of the pastors we met is Alberto. This is Alberto and his wife Jacqueline and their 5-year-old son. Daniel, and they've been in this church for 10 years on the hill, and you can see a very long table there because every week they try to feed everybody that comes to the church because they journey from a long distance to attend there. And you'll see this church building, and the church is really his house, and they've turned their living room into a place that they can congregate. You may not know this or not, but in Cuba you have no right to assemble. And if you didn't have a church building prior to the revolution in 1959, you have no right to build a church. There's no new churches. You can't, even if you had the money and the land, you cannot build a new church because they don't want a bunch of people gathering together talking about their life. So you have to have these house churches, and so we support Alberto. And he gave us a tour of his facility, and here's one of the things that we saw. This is kind of a common thing that you would see in Cuba, a rabbit. I think the name for that rabbit was lunch. And that's right, they eat rabbit there. And so now, how judgmental are you when you said, oh, God, I can't believe that. It was delicious, okay? It was delicious. Tastes like chicken. We had rabbit stew. It was amazing. They look at that differently. And was a sweet moment. When we were there, Jacqueline, the wife, brought us a snack. This is what they brought us, and it's just crackers and some cherry juice. The cherry juice came from a cherry orchard in her yard. And she made this cherry juice. I learned later, don't drink a lot of that. And and I drank, it was a hot day, and I drank about 3 glasses, which is about 2.5 glasses too much. And but I was taken back by the honor they bestowed upon us by serving us this because that's what they had. And I just wonder how different that is in America. You know, if I brought this, you come over to my house and say, I brought you a snack or a treat, and I brought you saltines and some cherry juice, what would you think? I mean, we're expecting a charcuterie board. I'm not even sure there's a Spanish word for charcuterie, or maybe that is Spanish. I don't know what that is. So, but when they brought this out, those crackers were delicious, and the cherry juice was amazing, and it was just like you felt honored. Here's something else I noticed in just about every Cuban home, and this was pretty common as a picture. That was their art in their house. They have a very basic concrete house. Because of the hurricanes, they have to build it out of concrete. But in just about every Cuban home, there's some picture of beauty that's there. And you think, well, what's a color photocopy of flowers? You might discount that, but it was astonishingly beautiful in the context that we saw. First of all, to have a color photo of anything is amazing in Cuba. And then this was beautiful. And she was so proud of this picture. It was just amazing. We met another pastor there, and this pastor was named Johnny. I can't pronounce the wife's name, but Johnny had been living, and this is their church. They have 50 or 60 people that kind of in and around on the weekend. This is a very old rickety house that they live in. You can see the outside of it's kind of fallen down and crooked, and it's kind of a mess. And they're building, though, a church next door that they're calling a house. It's their casa, you know. And I learned another Spanish word there called clandestino. And so they were building this. This is the biggest structure I've ever seen, biggest house I've ever seen being built new in Cuba that they're going to use as a church. You can see how big. There's another picture that's wide. And the only thing they're lacking there is the roof. And I've asked the pastor. They got to build that from ground up because the other thing fell apart. And I said, well, how long has it taken you to get to this point? And he was very excited to tell me that they've made all this progress, and they started in 2010. This is 9 years of work to get this. And I said, well, all you need is a roof. How much is a roof? They said $1,000. And I said, well, our people of our church have given us money to give to you. And so we left $1,000 for them to put a roof. And so I asked Johnny, I said, Pastor, now that you have the money for the roof, how long will it take you? And they said, well, we have no cement in the country. We can't find any cement. The nearest cement will come into the port of Santiago, which is 3.5, 4 hours away. And we're hoping in the next 6 months to have the cement. Now that we have the money, we can purchase the cement. And so I said, well, how long do you think it'll take you to get the roof on? They said, well, we hope by next year. Isn't that a different way to think? That we could just pick up the phone right now and have a delivery of concrete in our yard in a minute. And it's just, so you got to be careful about applying your American context to everybody else. And they were very happy and joyful, and they taught me so much about my own life and my own expectations and my own frustrations. And it was just the joy. We stayed at a bed and breakfast. Justin is the worship leader down at the West End campus. He's there today. Hi, Justin. And Justin's a great translator, and this is our bed and breakfast that we stayed in. I got the big bed because I'm the big man. And he stayed in the little bed. But look at the air conditioner. That was a beautiful thing. And we did still build a kind of a pillow wall because it's a little close for me, you know. And so it's an air-conditioned room. Now, how you got there is you went upstairs and you walked through these sort of, it looked like bars, but there were windows, and you went through a door into a kitchen, and then this door was to the right. Here's the door into the bedroom. Now, if you notice when we zoom in, there's no knob on this door. So when you lock the door, and when you shut the door, it locks. I didn't know this. And so this room, we always tried to keep the door shut because that's where the air conditioner was. So we were out on the patio. So we come into the kitchen area, and Justin uses the key. I blame him for what's happened here. So he puts the key into the door, and he locks the kitchen door. And then we walk into this room, and he sets his keys down, and we walk out. And I wanted to keep the cool air in the room. So guess what I did? I shut the door. And we went out on the patio, and I realized we're locked in. We're totally locked in. It's 9:30 at night. It's late. And now the homeowners are right below us, but it's late, and we think they're in bed. So I said, Justin, in your best Spanish, you have to call down to the homeowner because we are going to be, 3 weeks from, we'll die up here. And we were locked in. It was like a jail cell. And I go, God, we are such idiots. And so I had him yell down. I wish I would have recorded it on a video, but I didn't think about it. I did take this picture. And so, but I had him tell her name was Soyila, and so I said, well, let's show the people what it sounded like when you were hollering down. So this is what it sounded like.
Hola. Hola. Soyla. ¿Está ahí abajo? Hola, necesitamos ayuda. Estamos encerrados en la cocina. Hola, Soyla.
We've locked ourselves in the kitchen. Can you help us? Eventually, after a long time, they came up, and they were shaking their heads and laughing and being very judgmental. And judging us, for sure. It was hilarious. I totally, completely blame Justin for that deal. It's just a different context, you know. So we lose something important in our life that Jesus is trying to redirect our to self when we believe our context and our journey and our understanding is the only one. So the bigger picture is really your issue. Jesus saying, why do you look at it's so much easier, isn't it, to look at my faults and see my faults? Heck, I put them on stage and we put big lights on them. And it's like, you know, it's so much easier to see what I do wrong and criticize either internally or externally me. And it's so much easier for me to look at you and criticize you. And Jesus is saying, wait. If you want to have good relationships, you want a better life, this isn't easy. But first, here's the priority. First, you should look at your own life. Take a moral inventory. Look at your character and your context and what you're doing in your life. And consider first your life because it puts you in a much humbler position to consider others. That if you're just going to apply your sense of appropriateness, then you're going to be careful here because you're not taking into account other people's journey. Sometimes we don't give people the benefit of the doubt. We don't think the best of people. Sometimes we think the worst of people. And there's something in us that's powerful because somewhere along the way, this is how screwed up we are. Screwed up I am. You seem to have it together. But we try to get our sense of self-worth based upon a comparison on some sort of continuum of other people. So we're always looking for people that we feel, we'd never say this, but we feel better than. And because we feel better than them, it creates value for us. It's destructive for our souls and for our life. So we got to think the best about other people. As he's saying, we got to give people the benefit of the doubt. Be careful not to judge on an entire life based upon some bad moment that you got to witness on the highway or in life. So be careful. This is something we all Struggle with, if we're not careful, we'll become accidental Pharisees where we just didn't mean to, but something about this comparison trap that we find ourselves in on social media and other places create a false sense of value. And God says, you're valuable because I created you, because I said you're valuable. It's not about your performance at all. You're not better than or worse than. You see, God looks at all of us the same, and as a follower of Christ, he's wanting our vision to be like his vision. It's not that we can't say what you're doing is right or wrong. It's not that we can't judge sin or not judge sin or judge a person by their fruits. It's just that you're in the same boat that you're throwing rocks at. We're all the same. In fact, here's a kind of a famous story Jesus used in Luke 18. He says, here's two men. Think about these two men. These are two men at different ends of a spiritual continuum. The first man, they went to the temple to pray, and there was a first man, and the man was a Pharisee. And this Pharisee is a member of a religious Jewish sect that really focused on devotion to the word and devotion to the laws, and they were the ones that gave Jesus the most trouble. They're the ones that said to Jesus, this guy's a friend of sinners, you know. He doesn't measure up. These are the people that Jesus had the most problem with. These are the ones that he rebuked most often, these Pharisees. These were like on the continuum of religious people. They were all the way at the end, like this is it, right? So the Pharisee goes into the temple to pray, and here's how he prays. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed this prayer. He said, I thank you, O God, that I am not like these other people. Now, you probably have never prayed that, but you have thought it. Oh, you haven't? Well, neither I, but we know people who have thought it. Come on, be honest. Come on, we said, thank God I'm not like that. I have my issues, but thank God I'm not like that. Okay, this is what's happened. Then he goes on to talk specifically to God about what he's thankful for. Thank God I'm not a cheater or a sinner or an adulterer. Add what you want. Fornicator, liar, thief, gossip, glutton. What is it? Thank God I'm not like that. And then he gets real specific and he says, and I'm certainly not like the tax collector. And the picture here is that he's actually pointing. I'm not all these things. And thank God I'm not like that guy, the tax collector. Now, a tax collector was the most hated Jewish person in the culture because they were a Jew that was determined to be a traitor because they took in collected taxes for the Roman government, which oppressed the Jewish people. So they were actually the arm of the Roman government that supported them financially, and they would take more money than they needed in order that they might live a rich lifestyle, and the Roman government let them. So they were very hated. So he's pointing to that guy and says, and thank you especially that I'm not like this tax collector. Then he talks about not what he's not, but what he is. And look how religious and spiritual I am. I fast twice a week, and I give you 1/10 of my income. I volunteer up at the church. I give some money away. And so what I want you to see here is this false sense of worth comes from a self-righteousness that says, I feel good about me based upon my behavior, based upon my performance. And so he's reminding God of how good he is, and he's feeling pretty superior to all the other people. Because there's a comparison trap. Hey, I don't have everything together, but at least I'm not like that tax collector. And as long as there's somebody worse than me, I can feel good about me. And we become Pharisees like this. And if you're new to church or if you're coming back to church, this is probably why you left church. Because you showed up at one of your bad moments. And some dumb Christian said something dumb to you about the way you were dressed, or the way you smelt, or your tattoos, or your story. And you thought, man, I'll never fit in here. And that's what religious people do. And here's the contrast. But the tax collector stood at a distance, and he dared not even lift his eyes to heaven. as he prayed. So the picture here is that he's on the other end of the continuum here, and he's going, man, he won't even lift his eyes to pray. He doesn't want to be around, the picture is that he doesn't want to be around the other people because it's not about the other people, it's about him and God. It's a whole different idea. It's not about, hey, compared to everybody else, I'm doing pretty good. It's about me and you, God, and you're holy. And so I can't even look at you because you're holy. And this is what he did. Instead, this man, he beat his chest in sorrow. And he said, oh God, be merciful to me, for I'm a sinner. And there's this real picture, this physical thing where he continually beat his chest. It's almost like he wanted to feel physically what he knew was true spiritually. That I'm hurting, and that I've hurt myself, and that I've sinned against others, and I've sinned against God, and there's no more pretending, and this is real, and this hurts, and this is my reality. This is who I am. I am nothing but a sinner. And he says here, so God, I'm not trying to gain a right standing with you based upon my behavior, because I have no chance of that. But, oh God, say it with me, be what? Be merciful to me. I'm depending on God and being right with God, not based on my performance or my religious ideas or my self-righteousness, but based upon God's character. Oh, God, be merciful to me. Oh, God, show me mercy. Show me grace. Show me hope. Show me that you're good. Accept me based upon who you are, not based upon what I've done. And he's beating his chest because it hurts. He's saying, oh, God, help me. Which one of these was acceptable to God? Here's what God says. I tell you this, the sinner. What? The whole religious culture of the day would say the Pharisee. That was the goal, is to get your act together and your life in shape. And he says, no. It's the sinner, not the Pharisee. Returned home justified before God. For those who exalt themselves, the sense of self-righteousness, you're feeling pretty good about yourself because you showed up at church, you gave a little money, and you volunteered at the fall festival. Be careful now. You're better than those that didn't show up, or worse yet, those people who said they'd show up and they didn't show up. You know those people? You're better than that. Be careful here, because those who exalt themselves will be humbled one day, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. You know, the Pharisee one day passed, and he stood before God, and you think God's going, tell me all the good stuff you did. Well, God, I gave 10%, and I volunteered, and I was in the parking lot, and I went to that church with the fat pastor, and man, I tell you, I did good stuff, you know. Tell me all the bad stuff you didn't do. Well, I wasn't an adulterer, I wasn't a cheater, I wasn't a tax collector, and you think God's going up there going, good job. No, it's very clear. God would say to us when we try to bring our trophies to him and say, all your good works are like, it's crap. That's in the Bible, by the way. I can show you where that is later. Again, if you have a trouble with my sermon, my email is dean@rpc.me. Just email me. Say it bothers you. Somebody said crap in church. You shouldn't say crap. A pastor shouldn't say crap, and now he keeps saying crap. I'm creating a real problem for you, aren't I? And it's that idea. It's in Isaiah, by the way. I can show it to you. And God just says, no, your best is like filthy rags covered in crap. Your best. What? Yeah. God's looking for a humble spirit where you just say, oh, God, I ain't got a chance of making it on my own behavior. Oh, God, be merciful to me. And so that's when you have the correct view of yourself, a hopeless sinner in need of a Savior. And when you get all puffed up because you've been in church and you did a few things, you lose the power of the cross and what God's done in your life. And as soon as you forget that you need forgiveness, you'll forget that you need Jesus. And when you forget you need Jesus, you're going to ride on your own self-righteousness. And you're going to fall short. It's no good. And not only that, it's going to affect the way you relate to other people. You're going to walk around all puffed up, talking about my Cuban friends, talking about those church folk over there. You know what they're doing over there? I heard he brought some cigars back. You know what they're doing? It's that idea. And you go, no. Yeah, your behavior matters, but it matters not because you want to earn something, but because you have something. Because you have this relationship with God, and God's been merciful to you in Jesus, and he sent his only begotten son because he so loved you that when you believe that Jesus died for your sins, this is the hardest part about being a Christian, by the way, is recognizing your need for forgiveness, and you believe that Jesus died on that cross for you, not the sins of the world, but for you. And he rose from the dead so you could know him, and he conquered the grave so you could conquer this life and live eternally. Then all of a sudden you want to be a different person. Your behavior does matter because of what you've received. Your behavior doesn't matter, so you'll get something from God. You already have it. And when it makes such an impact in your life, you say, be merciful to me, God. And when I figure that out, it makes me want to be a better man because I already have God's grace and mercy in Jesus. That's the ideal here. That really is. So be careful about being judgmental. It might be a self-indictment. How do you want to be judged? I want to be judged with the full context of my life. I don't want to be that Pharisee, and I've become it. I've had to deal with my own disgusting self-righteousness over the years. It comes up unexpectedly in me. It's disgusting, and it destroys relationships, and it's so hurtful. I want to be like everybody else, broken sinners that need a Savior. That's where life is. I mean, that'll allow you, and we got to finish. I'm starving to death. Don't judge me. When we do this, it allows us, it's not that we can't go to our friend and say, hey, you got some dust in your eye. It's just that we do it with such humility because we've already looked at the log in our own. And we're able to confront people with a sense of love. It's our invitation to be kind to other people as we address the issues that we see. Hey, you may not notice this or not, but the way you treat your wife is disrespectful. You might want to look at that. And you might get well, who are you to judge? I don't know. I'm just telling you what I see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I love you and I care about you and I've earned the right to be heard and I've been in your life. And I make my mistakes in my marriage and I want you to point those out to me or with your kids. Here's a hard one. Hey, I think you drink too much because you're always drinking. Well, who are you to judge? I don't know. It just seems to be a destructive thing in your life. God's not saying don't do that. He just says before you do it, you better take a big look into your own life because that's where the power is. And when people know you care about them and love them, they'll listen to you. And they'll say, you think I drink too much? Well, maybe I ought to look at that. And that's what's effective. It's not coming to them and say, oh, yeah, I used to drink a lot, and now I've conquered that, and you should be like me. People don't like that person. But somebody that says, hey, man, I know your struggle. I know your addiction. I know your trauma. I know your heartache. And I know where you've come from. And I just want to say, maybe you ought to take a look at this. So difficult. Here's a hard one for those that are single and dating. When somebody comes and says, you might want to look again at that person that you're seeing because, ouch, that may not be the best thing for you. And boy, that's when you really get that. Well, who are you to judge? I don't know. That looks like trouble. God's saying do that, but do it in the spirit of love. Do it in the spirit of humility, not in the spirit of arrogance. This is about you and me and how we relate to each other. Let's figure it out. Don't be judgmental. Right? Look at the log in your own eye before you look at somebody else's. And watch how you're praying because it shapes your philosophy of life. So be careful about your self-righteousness. That's really the story here. Let's pray together and ask God for help. God, we do need help because in this world we compare ourselves to each other and we always find people who are worse than us And we always find people that we're better than, and it gives us a false sense of value and worth, that somehow, like the Pharisee, we thought we were special to you, not recognizing that you see everyone everywhere equally, that we're all broken and we're all in need of forgiveness, and our only hope for all of us is your son Jesus. So give us a humility to look in our own hearts, so then we can help others find you in deep and meaningful ways. It's very difficult to be corrected. We want to set our own rules, and we don't want others to address us, but may we be teachable and humble in desiring growth. May we never be like the Pharisee that believes we're better than others, but may we approach everybody loving others the way you've loved us. Thank you for your kindness and your mercy that's available to us through Jesus. It's his name we pray. Amen.